Hey there, I'm Jack. For nearly 7 decades, I believed a meal wasn't complete without meat on my plate. Growing up in rural Nebraska, we raised cattle. In Vietnam, I survived on whatever rations the military provided. And after returning home, I doubled down on what I thought was the American way: burgers, steaks, and bacon with nearly every meal. By my 70th birthday, I was taking 14 different medications. My doctor had run out of diplomatic ways to tell me I was killing myself with my fork. Heart disease, type 2 diabetes, high blood pressure, I had the full package deal. Then something happened that changed everything. I still remember that day clearly. It was my granddaughter's 10th birthday party. The family was playing softball in the backyard, and I couldn't even make it from the patio to the makeshift home plate without feeling like my chest was going to explode. I had to sit down, right there in the grass, while everyone watched with concern in their eyes. My son-in-law helped me to a chair, and my 5-year-old grandson asked, "Are you going to die, Grandpa?" Kids, they don't sugarcoat anything, do they? But that question hit me like a ton of bricks. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about all I'd survived: Vietnam, a helicopter crash in '68, even a house fire in the '90s. Was I really going to let a cheeseburger take me out? After everything I'd lived through, I've never been one to go down without a fight. The next morning, I called my doctor and said, "Doc, I'm ready to try anything. Even that plant stuff you've been bugging me about." Let me tell you, I was the most skeptical person on the planet about this whole vegan thing. I'm a Vietnam vet, for crying out loud. We were taught to adapt and overcome, but giving up ribeye steaks, that seemed like surrender. My doctor connected me with a nutritionist who specialized in plant-based diets for people with heart disease. Sarah was her name. Young enough to be my granddaughter, but patient enough to deal with all my grumbling. She didn't try to convert me overnight. "Let's start with one plant-based day a week," she suggested. Just Mondays. Those first meatless Mondays were rough. I'd stare at a plate of vegetables and beans like it was an unidentified object that had landed in my backyard. My wife Betty was supportive, but just as confused as I was. We'd been cooking the same meals for over 40 years. The first few weeks, I'd reward myself on Tuesdays with the biggest, juiciest steak I could find. I was being stubborn, but Sarah didn't judge. She just kept providing recipes and gentle encouragement. One Monday, about a month in, she brought me a plant-based chili that actually tasted good. Not just good for vegetarian food, but genuinely satisfying. That was the first tiny crack in my armor. By the 3-month mark, something unexpected happened. My meatless Mondays had somehow expanded to meatless Monday through Wednesdays, without me really planning it. I was sleeping better. The chronic pain in my joints, something I'd attributed to just getting old, and my time humping gear through the jungles of Vietnam, had noticeably decreased. At my checkup, my doctor couldn't hide his surprise. My blood pressure had dropped significantly. My blood sugar levels were improving too. He reduced 2 of my medications on the spot. "Whatever you're doing, keep it up," he said. What I was doing was eating more plants and less animal products. Not perfectly, I wasn't ready to call myself vegan by any stretch, but I was changing meal by meal. 6 months in, I had lost 27 pounds without even trying. My energy levels were through the roof. I started taking daily walks with Betty, something we hadn't done in years. At first, just around the block. Then a mile. Then 2. The most shocking change. My lifelong heartburn completely disappeared. After decades of sleeping propped up on pillows and carrying antacids everywhere I went, I could actually lie flat and digest my food like a normal person. It wasn't just my body that was changing. Something was happening to my mind too. As a veteran, I've carried the weight of my war experiences for decades. The nightmares had become less frequent over the years, but they never fully went away. About 8 months into my plant-based journey, I realized I'd gone weeks without a single combat nightmare. My mind felt clearer, more at peace. I mentioned this to my VA psychiatrist, almost embarrassed. Was I trying to claim that broccoli was curing my PTSD? It sounded ridiculous even to me. Actually, she said, there's emerging research on the gut-brain connection. What we eat absolutely affects our mental health, including conditions like PTSD and depression. She explained how inflammation from certain foods can impact brain function, and how a plant-based diet rich in certain nutrients can support neurotransmitter production and reduce anxiety. I'm not saying vegetables cured my war trauma. That would be oversimplifying decades of complex experiences. But I am saying that what I put in my body affected how I felt, not just physically, but emotionally. For the first time in my life, I understood that food was more than just fuel or pleasure. It was information for my cells, my organs, my brain. There was something else too. Something harder to describe. I started feeling a sense of purpose again. Like I was on a mission, but this time the mission was healing instead of harm. Now I won't sugarcoat this part. The social aspect of going plant-based in your 70s, especially as a veteran in a small Midwestern town. That's a special kind of challenge. My buddies from the VFW post were merciless with their teasing. Jack's eating rabbit food now, they joke. The VC couldn't take him down, but a salad might. They meant it in good fun, but it stung a little. The hardest was our monthly veterans breakfast at the local diner. Try ordering oatmeal and fruit at a table full of men getting steak and eggs. You'd think I'd announced I was working for the enemy. Family gatherings were tricky too. My son Mike, who followed in my military footsteps, couldn't understand it. Dad, we've always been meat and potatoes people. It's part of who we are. That comment made me think. Was eating meat really part of my identity? Was it as core to who I am as being a veteran, a father, a husband? I decided to bring some plant-based dishes to our family 4th of July barbecue. Didn't make a big announcement, just set them on the table alongside the traditional fare. My black bean burgers disappeared first. My grandson asked for seconds of my potato salad. No one even realized they were eating vegan food until I mentioned it. That taught me something important. Actions speak louder than labels. I didn't need to preach or convert anyone. I just needed to live by example and share good food. It was at my 1-year checkup that I finally embraced the V word. My doctor was reviewing my latest blood work, shaking his head in disbelief. Jack, your cholesterol has dropped 83 points. Your A1C is now in the normal range. Your kidney function has improved. Your inflammation markers are the lowest I've seen in a patient your age. Whatever you're doing, it's working. I was down to just 3 medications from the original 14. My weight had stabilized at 175 pounds. what I weighed when I returned from Vietnam in 1971. I hadn't had a single episode of chest pain in months. "I guess I'm vegan now, Doc," I said, surprising myself with the words. He looked up from my chart. Does the label matter? I thought about that. Maybe not to my body, but it matters to me. I fought it for so long, it feels right to finally admit it. I'm not just eating more plants or cutting back on meat. I've made a fundamental change in how I live, and I'm proud of it. That night, I told Betty I wanted to go fully vegan. She'd already been on this journey with me, adapting our family recipes one by one, learning new cooking techniques. She smiled and said, "I was wondering when you'd finally admit it." The next day, we donated the last of our leather items to the veterans' shelter and replaced our down comforter with a cruelty-free alternative. It felt right, aligned with the person I was becoming. As I embraced this new lifestyle, I became curious about the bigger picture. Why had no doctor in all my years suggested this approach before? Why wasn't nutrition a bigger part of veteran healthcare? I started reading books, scientific papers, anything I could get my hands on. I learned about the environmental impact of animal agriculture, something I'd never considered despite being a lifelong outdoorsman. I learned about the conditions on factory farms, which honestly disturbed me deeply as someone who grew up with a respect for animals, even those raised for food. Most surprisingly, I found a community of vegan veterans online. Men and women who'd served in Vietnam, Desert Storm, Afghanistan, Iraq, all ages, all branches, all united by their military service and their choice to eat plants instead of animals. One fellow Vietnam vet told me something that really resonated. In the service, we were trained to protect the innocent and stand up for what's right, even when it's difficult. For me, being vegan is an extension of those same values. I'd never thought of it that way, but it made sense. My military service and my veganism were both choices that went against the grain. Both required discipline and conviction. Both were, in their own ways, forms of service to something greater than myself. 2 years into my plant-based journey, I realized this wasn't just about my health anymore. It had become about my values, my legacy, and how I wanted to spend whatever years I had left. That brings me to where I am today. At 76 years old, I'm more active and engaged with life than I was at 60. I take 0 medications for chronic conditions. I can keep up with my grandkids. I sleep through the night. My doctor uses words like remarkable and unprecedented during my checkups. But the real transformation isn't measured in lab values or belt notches. It's in how I've found purpose in sharing what I've learned. Last year, I started a small support group at the VA for veterans interested in improving their health through nutrition. We meet twice a month, once for a potluck meal where we share plant-based dishes, and once for a discussion where we talk about challenges and victories. We started with just 3 people. Now we regularly have 15 to 20 veterans of all ages. Some are fully plant-based like me. Others are just beginning to explore how food affects their health. All are welcome. I've reconnected with my granddaughter, the one whose birthday party sparked this whole journey, in a new way. She's 16 now and passionate about environmental issues. We cook plant-based meals together, and she's teaching me about composting and reducing plastic waste. Who says you can't teach an old dog new tricks? Betty and I have also started a small garden. Nothing fancy, just some raised beds where we grow tomatoes, peppers, kale, and herbs. there's something profoundly satisfying about eating food you've grown yourself. After a lifetime of disconnection from the source of my food, I finally know exactly where my dinner comes from. Last month, I hit a milestone I never imagined possible. I participated in a 5K fundraiser for the local animal sanctuary. I didn't break any speed records, but I finished something the old Jack, with his chest pains and joint problems, could never have done. As I crossed that finish line, I couldn't help but think about the long journey that brought me there. From the battlefields of Vietnam to a plant-based plate. From skeptic to advocate. From merely surviving to truly thriving. So that's my story, from meat-loving veteran to plant-powered senior. It wasn't an overnight transformation. It happened one meal, one choice, one day at a time. I don't share this to convert anyone or to claim I've found the one perfect way to live. I share it because I know there are others out there, veterans, seniors, skeptics, who might be where I was 4 years ago. Stuck in habits that aren't serving them well. Believing that their health decline is inevitable. Thinking it's too late to change. To you I say this, it's never too late. Something new. Your body has an amazing capacity to heal when you give it the right tools. And the best years of your life might still be ahead of you. If you're curious about trying a more plant-based approach, start small. You don't have to go full vegan overnight. Begin with one meal a day or one day a week. Find plant-based versions of dishes you already love. Connect with others on a similar path. Community makes all the difference. And remember, this isn't about perfection. It's about progress. Every plant-based meal is a step in the right direction for your health. If a stubborn old Vietnam vet like me can change after 7 decades of meat eating, anyone can. It's never too late to plant new seeds. Thanks for listening to my story. If it resonated with you, please consider subscribing to Plant-Powered Seniors for more content like this. And if you're a veteran interested in exploring plant-based eating, check the description below for resources specifically designed for those who have served. Until next time, this is Jack signing off. Stay plant strong, friends.